Okay, welcome back. We're going to start this week by reviewing what we kind of ended last semester with, which is slope-intercept form. And we're going to do that a lot because it's one of the main things that we need to really be able to understand moving forward. So we have this worksheet we do as our notes today, and it takes us through going through the slope, the y-intercept, the slope-intercept form of an equation, graphing these lines, all that kind of stuff. Everything you need to know about slope and y-intercept. So number one, we're identifying the slope and y-intercept from each of these graphs. Let's zoom in on this graph. So let's use blue. So slope, well, actually, it's probably easier to start with the y-intercept. The y-intercept is just where on the y-axis our line is crossing. So our y-axis is this up and down axis here, right? This is the y-axis. And we're looking for where the line itself, our function, crosses that y-axis, and it crosses it here, right, which is at 1 on that y-axis. So our y-intercept is 1. So the y-intercept is very, very simple, just looking at where the function crosses the y-axis. Now our slope, we have to do a little bit of counting. Not a whole lot, but a little bit of counting. And you can kind of see these arrows here help us out. The slope is how you get from one point on the line to the other point on the line. And so there are these 2 points that we see on this line, and well, what are the directions? Well, to get from this one to this one, following the grid, it'd have to go up 2 spaces on the grid, so a rise of 2, and then have to run over 1 space to the right. So it's, we talk about slope as rise over run, rise being the change in direction up or down. If we're going from this point to this point, then we are going up 2 spaces to do that, so a rise of 2. And then a run is how far left to right it goes, because when you run level to the ground, so left to right. This one, to get from this point to this point, has to go over to the right 1 space, so that's why the run is 1. So when I say rise over run is the slope, I'm talking about how far up did we go compared to how far over did we go. We had to go up 2 and over 1, making the slope 2 over 1, or you can just simply write this as 2. 2 over 1 is the same as 2. So it has a slope of 2 and a y-intercept of 1. We'll look at the next graph, number 2, our y-intercept. Again, clearly, here's our function, right? Here's our y-axis. Those two are crossing here at 1 again, it looks like. It's not numbered, but because that's 2, I can assume that this is 1. So the y-intercept there is clearly going to be 1. Now our slope. So again, our slope is how we get from one point to the other. So how do we get from this point to this point? How far up or down or left or right do we have to go? Well, tracing these lines, you can see that to get from this point to this point, we'd have to first go up 2 spaces. So that's a rise of 2. And then we'd have to go over to the right 3 spaces. And that's a run of 3. So a rise of 2, a run of 3 makes it 2 on top, 3 on bottom. So our slope is 2/3. And you can leave it as a fraction. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It's perfectly fine, perfectly normal to be a fraction, especially for slopes. Okay, so number 3. I'll start with the y-intercept again. The y-intercept is here. That's where our function is intersecting the y-axis. And you can see that is at 2. The y-intercept is at 2. And now again, the slope. I always go from a left point to the right point. So that's kind of how I do things. I look at the point that's on the left and how do I get to the point that's on the right. And so from going from this point to this point, let's see what we have to do. We'd have to go down 1, right? From here to here, it'd have to go down 1 space. So that's a rise of -1, because if you're going down, then you're not really rising, you're descending. So that's why it's negative. But our run, we have to go over to the right 2 spaces to do that. So our run is over of 2. So our slope, in a sense, is -1 over 2 or -1/2. And again, you can just leave that as a fraction. There's nothing wrong with it. And then number 4, y-intercept again. So the y-intercept on this one, here's your function. Here's your y-axis. Those are intersecting here at what it looks like about -1. So our y-intercept is -1. Now, our slope again is how do we get from one point to the other? So we're going from here to this one, right? So to do that, we'd have to go up one space, so it's a rise of 1, and then to the right, 2 spaces, which is a run of 2. So rising 1 and running 2. You can see that in the lines, right? The lines go up 1 space and then right 2 spaces. A rise of 1, a run of 2. It's our slope is 1/2. Okay. So now let's look at these equations. So these equations are already in what we know as slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is generalized as y equals mx plus b. Now, I know you see a bunch of letters there, and maybe letters confuse you, but m is just here to represent a number, and that represents the slope. And b, again, also represents a number, and that number could be is the y-intercept. So when you look at number 5 is in this format of y equals mx plus b, y equals mx plus b. And you can clearly see in this that the m is our 3 and the b is our 4. So m and b are numbers. This is just the generalized form of it. But you're going to be looking at equations, real equations like this one, and having to remember that m is, the number that goes next to x, the coefficient for x, that's the 3, and then the b is kind of the constant that's being added or subtracted at the end. So identifying m as 3 and the b as 4, this tells me that the slope is 3 and my y-intercept is 4, which is good. We maybe want to write this as 3 over 1 as our slope, because it's true, it's 3, but 3 is the same as 3 over 1. And you'll see why we do that later on. It's going to help us when we go to graph it. Number 6 is also y equals mx plus b form. You have the m as your -2, and you have the b as your 8. So we have a slope. M is our slope, so our slope is -2, which I can write as -2 or -2 over 1. Again, whenever it's not a fraction, I like to make it look like a fraction. And again, the reason is when it comes to graphing, it's going to be a lot easier for us. So anytime you have a whole number like 3 or -2, you can make it look like a fraction by putting it over 1. So little tricks to remember. And then our y-intercept here is 8, because our b value there was 8. Now, number 7, we don't have a b value. It looks like we have a 1/2 x. We have a y equals mx, but there's plus nothing over here, right? And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that either. We can see that because the 1/2 is on the x, that the slope is 1/2, and it is already a fraction, so there's no reason to change it. 1 over 2, that's perfect. That's our slope. But because there is nothing here for the y-intercept, it means the y-intercept, as we mentioned, is 0. It's not that there isn't a y-intercept, because there is. It's just the y-intercept is at 0. So you don't see it show up here, because what's the point of writing plus 0? Okay, and then number 8. Again, like still in slope and intercept forms, still have mx plus b. Now you notice it's not a plus number in this case, it's actually a minus, and that's all right, that's fine. It's still, you can think of it like a plus a -1 instead of a -1. It's the same thing. So our m is this -3/4. Now when it comes to a negative, I like to associate the negative with just the numerator number, not both of them, or not just the bottom. So, -3/4 is our slope, but I'm going to look at it more like a -3 over 4. Again, that will help us when we do graphing things later. So that's our slope, and our y-intercept is this constant at the end. Now, because it's -1, our y-intercept is going to be negative here. I forgot to put the 0 there. Or maybe I erased it. I don't remember. But the y-intercept there is -1 because it's -1. Or you can think of it, like I said, as a plus -1. Same thing. It's still a -1. Okay, now we're going to get into graphing it. Now, this is the most important part, right? This is the part that makes or break it for you. So you have to be able to do these graphs. So when I look at these equations are again in mx plus b form. Y equals mx plus b form. Now in this case, you don't really see an m value because you don't see a number next to the x. Now that doesn't mean it's 0, because if the m was 0, you wouldn't see the x at all. Because if it were 0x, then 0x means 0x, means you wouldn't see an x at all. But we do see an x there, which means that the m is not really 0, the m is really 1, because we see 1x there. And that's the same thing on number 10, just to look a little bit forward. Number 10 is also 1x, because there is just 1x that's there. Okay, so this helps us out. We know that our slope here, our m value is 1, so our slope is 1, and I'm going to write this as a fraction, so I'm going to write it as 1 over 1. And then my y-intercept is this 5. So when I graph this line, I'm going to, let's zoom in on this graph, make it a little easier for us. Hold on, it's not letting me zoom. There it goes. Okay. I think my screen's dirty. All right, so our y-intercept is 5. So we're going to go on our y-axis, going to go up to 5. So count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to be a point right here. So there's 5. There's my y-intercept. Now my slope is 1 over 1. So remember, slope is an indicator of rise over run. So we're going to rise 1 space. We're going to go up 1 space, and then we're going to run to the right 1 space. So if we rise 1 space, we're going to rise up 1 and then run 1. That's going to put our dot right here. All right, and we continue that process until, as much as we can, really. So continue to rise 1, up 1, and then go right 1. Because remember, our slope is rise 1, run 1, until we can finish this line. So that's another dot there. If we go up 1 and right 1 again, we have another dot there. Oops, I'm erasing everything, but it's okay. All right, so you can kind of see the line forming. Now, we've only drawn, we only have that much of the line. So let's go backwards because we only went this way. Let's go the opposite direction. We'll do the same thing, but in the opposite direction. So we'll go down 1 and left 1 just to kind of fill out this pattern. It should be a straight line, So continuing this till we have a full line complete, going down 1 and left 1. So there you go. There's your full line, and then you can connect it all together, and there it is. This line has a y-intercept at 5, as we pointed out, and it has a slope of up 1 over 1 throughout the entire line. So now number 10. Number 10, we can see that its slope is, because there wasn't a number there for m, we know that it's 1. So we know that our slope here is 1, which again I'm going to write as 1 over 1. And then our y-intercept is our b value, which is at the end. We have -7. So our y-intercept is going to be at -7. So when we look at our graph, we're going to go find our y-intercept first. So -7. Now remember, the y-axis is this one, so we're going down -7 here. So we're going to go -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. -7 is there. Now our slope again is up 1 because it's rise 1, run 1, right? 1 over 1. So up 1 and right 1. So it's the same one as last time. So up 1 and right 1 is going to put our line point here, 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 and so on, right? Continue this pattern. Oops. And if we want to go backwards, we can go backwards 1 more space and just fill it in there. And now we have our line. We can connect it all together. There you go. Now this line has a y-intercept at -7, and it also has a slope of up 1 over 1 every time. Let's look at something a little different, right? Let's try this one. So again, this is still slope-intercept form. We still have mx plus b, so we still have m is -4, so our slope is -4. But again, I'm going to write it -4 over 1, just so it looks like a fraction. And then our y-intercept is 1. So our y-intercept is 1. So again, always start with the y-intercept. So the y-axis, remember, is the one here up and down in the center. We're going to go up to +1, so that's just going to be right here. Remember, 0 is in the middle, so going up to +1, we put a point right here. Now, here we got to be careful because our slope is -4, right, or -4 over 1. So our rise is -4, and our run is 1. So let's be careful how we do that. When we rise -4, we don't actually go up, we go down instead. So we go down 4. So we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. That's here. And then we're going to go right 1 space. And that puts us right here. So you can see if we count it again, let me pick a different color so it's a little more obvious. Right? We're going to be going down 1 space, 2 space, 3 spaces, 4 spaces, and then we're running 1 space to the right. So running 1 space to the right. And you can see that's where our next dot goes. And so we do this again just to fill out as many dots as we can. So we're going to go down 4, so down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right 1. And that puts us right here. Now you can see I don't have room to put one more, so I'm going to go backwards, right? Instead of going down 4 and right, I'm going to go up 4 and left, just to kind of continue this pattern, right? So continue this line because it's supposed to go sort of this direction, right? So if we do that, we're going to go up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then left 1 because we're going backwards, left 1. That's going to put our point right here. And then we could, well, we don't have enough room to do it anymore because if I go up 4 again, I'm going to be off the graph. So that's as many points as I can get. That's a straight line. So we're going to connect these all together. There you go. This is a line with a y-intercept at -1 and a slope of -4 over 1 because it's going down 4 and right 1. All right, number 12, y equals 2x. So 2x, this is our m because it's a number with x. You can see that there is nothing being added or subtracted at the end. So this means that our y-intercept is 0. So our slope, as we pointed out, our slope is 2, which again I'm going to write as 2 over 1 because I want it to look more like a fraction. And our y-intercept isn't shown, so our y-intercept is 0. So on the y-axis, the y-intercept of 0 is going to be right here in the middle. So we know that there's actually a point there because our y-intercept is 0. It's not the y-intercept doesn't exist. You don't see it in this equation, right? It's not there to start with. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It does exist. It's just at 0. And that's here, of course. So, and our slope is 2 over 1. So remember, rise over run. This means that we're going to be rising 2 spaces, so up 2 spaces, and then running 1 space. And when we run, we always go to the right. When we're starting out, at least. We always do the first move to the right. So rise 2. So let's count up. Let's use a different color just to show it. So from that 0, we're going to go up 1, 2. So that's a rise of 2. And then we're going to run 1, which puts us right here. So we're going to have our point here. Oops, there it is. All right, so that's rising 2 spaces and running 1 space. And we're going to do that again and again and again. So rising 2, running 1, puts our next point there. Rising 2, running 1, puts our next point there. Right? Rising 2, running 1, puts our next point there. So you can see that's how I sort of fill out our line. Now I've run out of room on the left, or sorry, on the right side, so I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go down 2 and left 1 to sort of fill in the rest of this line. So down 2, left 1 puts us here. Down 2, left 1 puts us here. Down 2, left 1 puts us here and here. So let me erase those. There we go. So that's our line. It has a y-intercept at 0, and it has a slope of rising 2 and running 1 every time. So draw our line. There it is. All right, so let's try number 13. So number 13, we have our m. Our slope is 1/3, which is nice. It's already a fraction for us, so that's good. That's going to be a rise of 1 and a run of 3, so that's helpful. And then our y-intercept is 2. So y-intercept is 2. So on the y-axis, we're going to start at 2. Let's zoom in on this graph. So 2 is going to be up 1, 2. Our 2 is right here. And now our slope, remember our slope is 1/3. So it's rising 1 and then running 3. So count this carefully. Okay. We're going to rise 1. So it's going to be up 1. That's here. And then we're going to run 3. So we're going to go to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. And that puts our point all the way over there. Here. Okay. And do that again. Going up 1 and right 3. Get your next point. See that? And then I don't have room to go up 1 and right 3 again. So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go down 1 and left 3 to try and fill out the rest of these points. So down 1, left 3, just the opposite of what we were doing before. And we get our line. So there's our line. You can see again, it's got a y-intercept at +2, and it's got a slope of going up 1 and right 3. All right, -1/4. This is a good one here, +3. So our slope Our slope is negative 1/4. Now, what I said earlier was I said if it's negative, just associate the negative to the numerator, not the denominator. Only one part of this. Don't make both numbers negative. That would be incorrect. So make the slope negative 1 over positive 4. That's the same thing as just negative 1/4. All right, and then our y-intercept is going to be this 3. Our y-intercept is at 3. So again, on the y-axis, we're going to go up to 3 to start with. So 1, 2, 3. That puts our point here. And now remember, our rise over run. Our rise is negative 1, and our run is 4. So to rise negative 1, we would actually, again, have to go down 1. So we're going to go down 1, since our rise is negative, and then we're running 4, remember. So we're going to go to the right 4. We always go to the right. Don't ever doubt that. Go to the right, at least when you're starting, right? The only time you go left is when you're finishing off the line, right? We're going to finish this line this way first, and then we'll do the other side, okay? So always go to the right at the first step. But we are going down 1 because our rise was a negative 1. So we're going down 1 and right 4. That's going to put our next point right there. Okay, and we'll do it again. We'll go down 1 because our rise is negative 1, and then right 1, 2, 3, 4. Puts our next point here. See, now I've run out of room on the right, so I'm going to go backwards, do everything backwards to go to the left. So I'm going to go, instead of down 1 and right 4, I'll go up 1 and left 4. Up 1, left 4, puts our point here. And then up 1, left 4, puts our point here. And there's our line. Perfect. It has a y-intercept at 3. And it's got a slope of going down 1 and right 4, negative 1/4. All right, number 15, we have a slope of 2/3 and a y-intercept of negative 1. So start with the y-intercept. Again, the y-intercept is this axis. We're going to go down to negative 1, so 0 is in the middle, remember. Negative 1 is going to be just 1 below it. So there's our y-intercept. Now our slope is 2/3. So again, this is rising 2, running 3. So both these are positive, so rise is going to be upwards. So we're going to go up 2, so up 1, 2, and then running to the right 3, 1, 2, 3. Puts our point right here. So again, you can see that we've gone up 2 spaces and then right 3 spaces, a rise of 2/3. Okay, we'll do it again. Go rising 2, so 1, 2, and then running 3, 1, 2, 3. Puts our next point there. All right, now let's go backwards. To go backwards, we'll do the opposite. We'll go down 2 and then left 3. That's going to put us right here. And then we can do it one more time. Go down 2 and left 3. Puts our point right here. All right, and now we have our full line. So our line has a y-intercept at negative 1, and it's got a slope of going up 2 and right 3 every time. Up 2 and right 3. And then one more. So again, we have another negative slope. So remember to associate the negative to the numerator just to make it easier. So let's call our slope negative 3 over 4, right? Negative 3 over positive 4. And then our y-intercept is negative 3 here. So y-intercept, negative 3. So our y-intercept is at negative 3, so we're going to go down to negative 3. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3 is going to be here. Oops. And our slope, remember, is negative 3 over 4. So our rise over run, we're going to rise negative 3. Now remember, when your rise is negative, it means you're going down. So we're going to go rising negative 3, means we're going to go down 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then remember, always go to the right. And our run here is 4, so we're going to run to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where our next point will go. Right here. So it's a big slope, going down 3 spaces and right 4 spaces, but that works. I'm going to go backwards as well because I don't have enough room to go to the right anymore. So to go backwards, instead of going down 3 and right 4, I'll go up 3 and left 4. So up 3, 1, 2, 3, and left 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Puts our next point there. And then I can do it one more time. Going up 1, 2, 3, and left 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's our line. Connect all those dots. We're good to go. All right, so again, it has a y-intercept at -3, and it has a slope that's negative. It goes down 3 spaces and then right 4 spaces. All right, so that's going to be it. You have to make sure you know this stuff really, really well. So if you need to go back and watch them again and again, do so. It's only going to benefit you in the long run if you do. So good luck. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.